Hello and welcome to week 21 of the Base on Balls podcast here at the Johnny Lee Memorial League. I'm joined alongside Jon Heite and Conner for tonight's episode as we look and recap the semifinals and preview the championship. But before we do that, how are you all doing? Jon, I'll start with you. How are you doing?
Yeah, and I am doing good. I'm happy to be moving on. Someone's narrative, a.k.a. Bragton, a really bad one that me and Hen weren't going to win any playoff games. We both squashed that after these two rounds now. For my standards, this was really an off week for me, honestly. 760. If I would have played either you or Jamie, I would have lost. So a little bit scarring to see that. I mean, that means I'm due for a good week next week. But congratulations to Paul to getting to the semifinals and being able to knock off Cody. I wasn't on the pod last week, but that was just a very, very impressive win. But this week, just being able to move on is always a good feeling. To be in the title game after the season I've had is a good feeling. And excited to face you next weekend.
And Conner, how are you doing?
Doing terrific. Another week off of active fantasy managing, given where my team is. But I think these were exciting playoff matchups. Looking forward to getting into them. And I think it's a good fit for Labor Day that one of the matchups came within 2 points, and the managers had to sweat out every last point they could. So let's get into it.
Yes, let's get into it. And we will start with my game as the Clearwater Beach Dogs took down the Tampa Tarpons 764 to 762. A 2-point game that literally went down to Sunday night. Jon, I'll start with you because Jon, I'll start with you. You were with me a lot today. You were kind of seeing the inner workings. What were your thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, and it was definitely an experience watching you sweat this one out. It was close. I mean, shout out to Jaime. I mean, this team was just unbelievable this week. 22 home runs, 554 offensive points. I mean, for you, I would have been devastated if I lost. Like, if I were you and you lost like that to guys like Bryce Harper and Trey Turner with 116 points, or your guys on the Phillies. He gave you everything he had. You gave everything you had. It was just two, heavyweight opponents. It was a lot of fun. But this matchup all came down to one key factor for me. It was the pitching. We've talked about the entire year pitching rules. Jaime, obviously vocal earlier in the season about getting the bats, which his bats, top 3 in the league, maybe even number 1 on most weeks, just because of the stark power he has. But 208 pitching points, that's not going to do it in a playoff matchup. It's just not. You had 362 pitching points. Obviously, your bats, you had 402 compared to 554. But pitching rules in this league, and for him, I mean, he had the lead. It looked like he was going to win, but the guy, Jose Soriano of the Angels, sold big time to the mighty Oakland A's. I think he had like -10 or something. We watched it in real time. We couldn't believe it. And, the pitching just wasn't there, and that's what the matchup came down to. Jaime had control most of the week. Again, all of his big guys stepped up, I mentioned. Trey Turner, Acuna had 113 points. Actually, a little bit slower for Freddie Freeman and Will Smith. Only 42 and 37. Maybe expect a little bit. Tatis with only 40. Seager with 50. I mean, these guys have been putting up 70-plus points each week. But yeah, I mean, Lance Lynn, -14. Aaron Nola, not a big game pitcher, -7. Gavin Williams only had 2. He had some decent performances out of Chris Sale, Brandon Woodruff, the Miller brothers, Gossman as well. I think had an okay. I think he might have had a 2-star week. Only had 27, and obviously Alex Cobb, one more out, and Jane would have had a no-hitter, and probably, I mean, he would have won with relative ease. So, some luck was involved a little bit with some of the way it ended. But congratulations to Hen for moving on to the title game. And again, congratulations to Jaime, whose team is still just disgusting. It's kind of scary to see that Freddie Freeman and Acuna are out of the playoffs, 2 of the best players in baseball. But yeah, definitely good seasons by both, and excited to, again, face you next weekend.
And Conner.
This is the most fitting end to Jaime's season possible. At the start of the year, there were major concerns that the pitching was star-studded, but there was no depth. And in June and July, the rotation kind of made a transformation to focus more on depth, getting Bobby Miller, Bryce Miller, and Gavin Williams for Garrett Cole, and similar moves like that. We knew that Jaime's offense would produce, the pitching would be a question mark, and this is both of those on steroids. David Bednar, 38 points, combined more than Josh Hader, Kenley Jansen, and Jordan Romano. That's just insane production from Hen's team, and partially just bad luck for the Tarpons. They were just going to be rough starts. Lance Lynn obviously was going to come down after a few good starts for the Dodgers, minus 14. If Gavin Williams had not left in the first inning, that would have changed the matchup. But I think the discrepancy between Hayden and pitching was just too great, and Jaime came up a little bit short against the top tier, as we had discussed along the pod. And then, of course, congratulations to Hen, 402 points of offense, 362 pitching. That is the balance that all managers strive to have. And then just these rotational performances, I guess, waiver wire, just really producing. Ryan Walker with 4 points, Keen Wynn with 14, Drew Smiley, who's moved around a bit, with 14. Those add up. So the fact that I think twice as many pitchers were used by the Beach Dogs is definitely important, and I think a worthy finals opponent for the undefeated team.
Yeah, I mean, I want to give a couple of shout-outs. Jose Siriano, he pitched today for Jaime, had a negative 18-point outing against the mighty Oakland A's. Watching that live, that was surreal. I want to say, actually, before I get my second shout-out, today was probably the most I'd watched baseball maybe ever. From like 2 p.m. till the Sunday night game, I was just constantly, watching some game, whether it was my guy batting or Jaime's guy pitching. I was just flipping through the channels, just finding a game that had some sort of played out scenario. I was locked in. It paid off in dividends. And then also want to shout out Spencer Steer, who isn't even on either team, because on Tuesday night, like Jon Heite mentioned, Alex Cobb was an out away from a no-hitter, which would have won, would have been the nail in the coffin, but he hit an RBI double in the gap, to break the no-hitter and break the complete game shutout as well, which was the difference between me winning. So, shout that. And then, speaking of Sunday heroes, you mentioned him a bit earlier, Connor, but Keaton Wynn had a nice 5-inning bulk relief appearance for the Giants today. 14 points. Came out in stride. But, this was a real good team effort by the Beach Dogs. We had not, my team wasn't leading until the Sunday night game. I had been trailing the entire week, never had a lead. Well, maybe I had a lead like early in day one, but I didn't finish the day with the lead until today. So we came back, was hitting the waiver wire like crazy. I had, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 pitchers who I picked off waivers for appearances, and most of them worked out. So, yeah, I mean, sorry that one team had to lose, because Jaime's team did really well. I mean, when you have 554 points in your bats, you should win basically every week. But pitching kind of fell through. Didn't get some good outings from some pitchers, and we'll take it where we can get it. And we're moving on to the championship. Now, facing me in the championship is our very own Jon Heite, who's on the call. Still undefeated, has not lost since joining the league. He took down the Norfolk Tide 760 to 625. Jon Heite, I'll start with you. Obviously, this is your team. What were your thoughts on your performance this week?
Like I said before, again, congrats to Paul for getting to this stage. His team is really, really good. I said that before. I mean, I was not lying. I mean, he's probably got one of the best future teams with the amount of prospects he's accumulated, the young talent he has, the already MLB talent he has that's super young. Guys like Julio Rodriguez, Zach Gilov. I mean, there's so many guys on this team that hurt. Ian Happ, former Yargo, at 76 against me. Just so many things. I mean, early in the week, I think it was like the first day, I was doing good. My team really stalled for about 3 days. Was getting a little worried just because I did well in the bye week. I had like almost 900. But, I knew I was going to regress a little bit. My offense was unacceptable by my standards. I think he actually outscored me on offense. I think it's the first time that might have happened to me all year. He had 423. I had 421. I'm used to outscoring everyone on offense, and I'm pretty confident I think I can next week now, just because I had a bunch of poor performances by my top guys. But this matchup, for me, similar to yours, Hen, came down to the pitching. Paul mentioned on the podcast last week, I listened to it today, had some trouble getting starts and, trotting out guys like Adam Wainwright. I built my team to be as complete as possible, and my pitching, I think, really was impressive this week, which I was happy to see, because I know my offense should be fine. It should be fine next week as well. But so many good performances. Blake Snell's been the best pitcher in baseball, 83-point week and a 2-star week. Framber gave me 31. Max Fried gave me 48 piece. Garrett Cole gave me 34. Corbin Burns gave me 20. The only one that I was very disappointed with was Zach Allen. Terrible week by him. -9 between 2 starts. Got lit up like a Christmas tree. I'm hoping he'll be fine for next week. But we'll talk about later about my pitching for next week. But yeah, my offense just wasn't there. Matt Olson only gave me 30 points. He was 5 for 30. Marcus Semien gave me 20. Machado 30. Lindor 29. Outside of Mookie Betts, who had 68, who's been unbelievable. Judge had almost 50. The rest of the offense, Shohei Ohtani, you could tell he's hurting a little bit. Or UCL, that's can't believe he's still playing baseball regardless after that. So kind of surprising to see all that. Only had 40 points. I definitely think my team is probably more vulnerable than it's been all season. Talk about the injuries, losing Felix Bautista, Ohtani not being able to pitch. I have Evaldi out, a couple other injuries here and there. Also, Merrill Kelly gave me an absolute muffin this week, -18, but it was the Dodgers. I had a bunch of guys go against the Dodgers this week, so that kind of stunk. But just grateful to get the win. I was probably going to pass both you and Jaime in points if not for Zach Gallen stinking it up later on when we were watching it before. But yeah, Paul, again, I think the pitching was the big issue. I think he would say that himself if he were on this podcast. The offense was good. He outscored my offense. Again, congrats to Paul, and hoping the Argoats just win one more game to complete what no one thought we would do at the beginning of the season, and that's an undefeated season.
And Connor.
So I think, obviously, Paul had a terrific upset last week, but what had bugged his team for a lot of the season, the hitting-pitching discrepancy, not consistently hitting 300 pitching points, that definitely returned. Tanner Houck with 15 was a decent deadline addition, but I think against a lesser start, if I remember correctly, against Kansas City, I think you would be hoping for more. Eduardo Rodriguez with 36. Brandon Williamson with 16, just solid outings, but just didn't add up. A couple of dud performances by Jonah Down and Peter Lambert. And then 423 points of offense is great, but against the undefeated team, that's not going to work. And then for the Yard Goats, John just spent 2 minutes talking about how the offense was underperforming, and this is a low point total. But 421 points of offense is what we've complimented half the league about it. When my team, if Scott's team, the bat-heavy teams that don't compete as much have that, then it's considered a brand performance. So I think the fact that so many things went off, Matt Olson had a 2-week homerless streak or something, and then still having that production is just terrifying. And then 350 pitching points on top of it is just showing why the Yard Goats are the most complete team this league has had throughout the course of the year.
Yeah, this is kind of the status quo for Jon Heite. I know he was really sad he couldn't, exceed my point total. He was, sweating it out in a 140 point victory. But it's similar to what happened with me and Jaime's matchup. It was the pitching. Jon Heite has, inarguably, I think, the best rotation. Highlight, obviously, Blake Snell had a huge week. Garrett Cole's he probably has both Cy Young finalists or award winners. Zach Gallen had a rough week, -9, a 2-star week, which was rough, but he still, had great pitching overall. Max Fried had a 48-point outing. But then you look at Paul's team. Hunter Brown, who was a big deadline acquisition, got 1. Tanner Houck only got 15. Joe Nadon, who was a stream start, because I know Paul said he was pushing for that that 12th start, -5 points, I believe, against the Miami Marlins, who swept the Nationals. Peter Lambert, -2. Just couldn't match the pitching, which is hard to do. I mean, the bats, like we said, exceeded Jon Heite's, but the pitching just couldn't compensate for it. And I know Jon Heite's disappointed in this matchup. He says his team could do better, and we'll see what he does for this championship. And speaking of that, obviously, if you do a little deduction, a little math, some problem solving, there are 2 teams left. Myself, the Clearwater Beach Dogs, and the Hartford Yardgoats. Now, Jon Heite, I know who you say are going to win, and you know who I say who's going to win. So we'll go with Connor. Who do you think's going to win this matchup?
To be the man, you have to beat the man, and no one has beaten the Yardgoats this year. I think that the Beach Dogs had a really rough first 5 weeks of the season, and I know Paul and I were critical of the deadline and the week or two after that. But the Beach Dogs and the Yardgoats have clearly been 2 of the 3 best teams throughout the course of the year, so these are very worthy final teams. However, I do think I do have to give the edge to the Yardgoats simply because they have not been beaten. Obviously, Heite's beaten Hen already this year, and just given the potential for an 1,000-point, 950-point outing that the Yardgoats have shown, but the Beach Dogs haven't. I think there's a 2,000-point discrepancy on the season for point totals. I think the edge has to go to Hartford for, I guess, the first title and what I think John wants to be a dynasty.
John, we can do this breakdown. If you want to talk your talk, I mean, say what you want to say about your team. Say your little piece about why you think you're going to win.
Okay, so obviously it's been a fun season. There's been a couple of times where I've been on the ropes. Paul almost had me. Tito almost had me one week. But my standard for this team that I've constructed has been between 850 to, honestly, high 9s to low 1000s. I've broken that multiple times this season. I outscored a team that had a perfect game in 1 week. So I know what my team can be. In terms of luck, again, Hen has a phenomenal team. Again, like Connor said, these are 2 teams very deserving of being the championship. It's hard to beat a team 3 times. So I've beaten Hen twice. They were obviously intense matchups. Me and Hen are, very strategic owners. It's going to be a war. But, maybe there's some luck involved because beating a team of this caliber 3 times is very hard to fathom. But, I know what my team is. The fact that I had a down week this week means I have all the confidence in the world that my offense is going to wake the fuck up this week. I know my pitching was really good last week. I expect maybe a little bit of a regression there, but I have a 2-start Garrett Cole week, a 2-start Corbin Burns week. This is where me getting Garrett Cole is really going to be the bread and butter for me close to the trade deadline. Corbin Burns as well. Everyone wanted him. I did not trade him because I know he's still an ace. I have at least 6. I think there's more of 23-point-per-game pitchers. I know, again, I've constructed this team. Obviously, it's older. It's constructed to win games like this now. In 3 years from now, I have a lot of confidence that Hen would probably beat me in this situation with guys like Corbin Carroll, Kyle Tucker, Juan Soto, who are not even 25 yet. But I have guys all in the prime of their careers. Obviously, there's a little injury concern, like I mentioned before, but Aaron Judge is back. Mookie Betts is back. I think guys like Matt Olson and Machado are really going to wake up this week. Lindor, there's some good matchups for them. We both played the stream game hard, so don't be surprised if we see a lot of the same pitchers between the two of us. Like Matt Strahm is a big guy I had for a little bit, Hen had for a little bit. So I'm sure we'll take turns playing him against each other. But it should be an absolute bloodbath. I am all here for it. Obviously, Hen's one of my closest friends, so I'm very excited. I did take you down in hockey, so I know you want all the revenge in the world for that title game. And best of luck to you, Hen.
Yes, best of luck to you as well. But unfortunately, you are not going to finish the season undefeated. You know, it's hard to beat the same team 3 times, like you said, Jon Heite. I think our team is clicking at the right time. We had a bit of a rough, post-trade deadline week, but I think the past 3 weeks, I think I have been the highest-scoring team. I know I've been the highest-scoring team in the playoffs because I was the highest scorer the last 2 weeks. Obviously, the talent of the teams generally stayed the same. We're familiar with each other's teams. If there's something I'm a bit nervous about, Jordan Alvarez did go down in the Sunday night game. He still played, but that's something to obviously monitor. Hopefully, that was just a kind of a fluke, and that's past it. But I also right now still need another start, but trust me, I'll find that somewhere. Max Scherzer's listed as questionable. Maybe he gets the start. We'll see, but I think I have some pretty advantageous pitching matchups. I don't have the 2-star week of a Garrett Cole, unfortunately, but I have a Lucas Giolito Angels revenge game, which might be better than any Garrett Cole start. And then I get Andrew Heaney against the vaunted Oakland A's. So we'll see. I have all the confidence in the world because I never pick against my team, because if you don't believe in yourself, then who else will? Fantrax has this projected as a 743, 718 matchup in favor of Jon Heite. But will they be right? I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out and see. If you guys have anything else to say, we can quickly wrap this up.
I do have one quote that I think is relevant for this. To quote Justin Timberlake, "Is it really cocky if you know if it's true?" I think that comes to mind when you two show the confidence in your team. Obviously, you're 2 of the 3 highest scorers. I think John proclaiming that the expectation is to score 900 points is what every manager strives to be, and it's just also a great indicator of what a great position the league is in, that there are 2 managers that have had ups and downs in different ways, and still, even though they have the best, most complete rosters, are still using the waiver wire to get any advantage they can. So I'm definitely looking forward to this matchup, and glad that 2 close friends are going to be duking it out.
Yeah, I mean, one of us will have to be victorious, and I do wish you the best of luck, John, in your endeavors.
I do too, to you, Hen. And like Connor just mentioned, it just shows you how good of a spot this league is in. Obviously, there can only be 2 teams in the finals, but there have been so many teams that were deserving to be in this position that obviously playing the waiver wire have constructed really, really good teams. We have a good mix of teams competing, teams that are going to be unbelievable in about a year or 2. Again, the league's in a fantastic spot. And, anything can happen. It's 1 week. It's not like football sometimes in the playoffs where you have 2 weeks. There's really no margin for error here. One bad pitching start like we saw from Jaime could ultimately dictate everything. We know it's going to be a bloodbath. We know it's going to be fun. And, obviously there's some luck going against me with, your New England Patriots comparison to me losing in the Super Bowl, which I hope doesn't come true, and me not beating you for a 3rd time. But I don't think the luck really matters with my team, and I hope that's the case this week against a team, obviously, that's just as good and should be just a wild ride.
Jon Heite will become like the 2007 New England Patriots, and I will
let's hope not. I fucking hate that team.
And I will be the New York Giants with our spirit animal, Lane Thomas and Jonah Hymas, Eli Manning and David Tyree leading the way. Well, that will do it for us here on the Based on Balls podcast as we wrap up the end of the regular season with the championship this week. I've been Hen, joined alongside Connor and Jon Heite. Tune in next week where we will recap the season, the championship, and discuss some awards as well. Take care.